Episode 63. We have Inside Tracker here.
What's going on?
Thanks for having us.
What's up, guys?
No problem, guys. Thanks
So
for
glad
coming.
that you guys came back.
Okay. And we have Trice on the cymbals. Just
Yeah.
making
On the
noises.
cymbals.
Trice, that's enough.
Maybe he's a future drummer.
There's a future for sure. We know that.
Future of something.
It's
I
a
don't know
good
what
thing.
it is, but it's something.
Trice NATO, right?
Trice NATO, Trice Man, Trisaster.
That was a good one
Ooh.
today.
Good one today. That's what we came up
He
with
spun
today.
right around for
'Cause
that
he's
one.
pretty close to a Trisaster.
Look at him looking. He's like, what's Dad saying to me? So today, when you guys were working out, he was carrying the Fritos around,
Yep. I saw him dump them all out.
and he dumped them out on the floor. See, Trice kind of eats what Trice wants to eat.
Yep, wherever it is.
And so my first thought was, okay, throw all that away, right? Because
No.
it's on the floor. And then I was like, nah,
He'll
just
eat it.
pick it up and put it back in the bag, let the boy roll.
Strengthen
He's
his
good to
immune
go.
system.
He pushes the upper limits of the 10-second rule. It doesn't exist to him. He's more like a maybe like 37-minute rule.
He will have an immune system that is bulletproof in his adult life.
Oh my gosh, without question.
I would say as long as it keeps him happy, but he seems like he's always happy. So
95% of the time he's happy. As long as he's not tired. He's pushing the upper limits of tired right now. He's a little past a nap. Like I said, you can really tell when that left eye starts going off in the left field.
Is that really the cue?
Oh yeah, yeah. He had like when he was real little, he had a lazy eye, and then the longer or the older he gets, it's kind of fixed itself.
Yeah.
But you can tell whenever he gets tired, it's just like off in left field completely.
I just love how he loves you and he wants to be
He's the
around
man.
you. And
He's my dude.
the one Will thing, I'm freaking out the other
Oh, he
day.
loves
Like,
being on that
yeah,
thing.
you just pick him up and he just
to go.
takes off. He's excited.
Good to go. He loves riding that thing.
I'm sure Hillary loves to see that.
Yeah, I don't know if she's actually seen that. She won't listen to this either. So
Yeah.
She won't even know about
Do you
it.
guys have kids?
I do. I have a 1.5 and a 3.5-year-old, two boys.
So you understand all of this.
Yeah,
in it.
he reminds me of my second a lot.
Yeah.
He's
Is
so
your
happy,
oldest
super
boy or
chill.
girl?
They're both boys.
Both boys,
My
okay.
3.5-year-old is such a diva, and
Really?
he has been since the moment he came
Right.
out.
That's
So
our older daughter is that way.
Yeah.
She's fun, but she's the same way.
yeah.
No,
So-
no kids for
No
me.
kids. Are you married?
Kids yet?
Just got married like 6 months ago.
Oh,
There you
wow.
go.
Congrats.
Yeah.
How's that
So,
going?
Thank you. It's not too much different, I say.
Okay, good.
Still get nagged. Still get.
Oh, wow. You just put that out
You
there.
gonna listen to that?
She's gonna watch that.
She's like
I'm
mine.
kidding.
She won't listen to
No,
this,
it's
so.
great. I love married life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, long story short, we had Inside Tracker, came and drew our blood. How long ago was it?
December,
December.
December, yeah.
November, December.
And we wanted to bring them back and talk about our results and everything that happened.
Yeah, of course.
Well, there's still a lot to learn, too,
And also
for
benefits too, yeah, for everybody else to
what?
do it. I said also what the benefits are for everybody
sure. Oh,
else.
yeah,
to do
just
it
to
too,
go through it for sure. But my first thought was, do you have any crazy blood draw stories of, like, people just...
We couldn't get Dre to take blood. Remember?
No. And, well, Haley
He
laid
refused.
down and had to be consoled the whole time. Heidi, like, held her while she was
Yeah.
down.
Haley and Tasia, I think, were, I've been with the company for almost 2 years. And they were definitely my worst experiences, I guess, who had their blood taken.
Haley and Tasia. Tasia was that way too.
Tasia, yeah.
Tasia had KM.
Tasia was panicked.
I missed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, you
'cause I
did.
came in a little bit late.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
which,
did.
I mean, it was kind of funny the story that we had a lady, local lady that drew blood. She actually drew blood for me when I worked at the fire department.
I
so it
know,
was
that
kinda
is
funny.
really funny. She was great, too. She did
She
a
was
phenomenal
awesome.
job.
She was like,
I actually have a lot of people that right before they get their blood drawn or they had just gotten their blood drawn, they'll call and they're like, oh, I was wildly unprepared. The night before I went out on a bender and then I ate like a huge cheeseburger right before the blood draw and I had worked out like an hour before. They're like, do you think those will affect my results? And we're like,
Yes.
definitely. You need a redraw.
perfect. Well, do you guys first just want to kind of summarize just what Inside Tracker is and what people might use it for before we kind of ask you some more questions about it?
Sure. So really high level, we are a health analytics company, and we're looking at key biomarkers in your blood that are scientifically tied to performance, overall health, and longevity.
What's an example of like a biomarker for?
So we look at lipids, minerals, vitamins, and hormones. So we're going to look at your glucose, your triglycerides, so your cholesterol, an example of the vitamins and the hormones would be your testosterone or your DHEAs. We'll look at B12. We'll look at cortisol, vitamin D, a full CBC panel. So we're pretty much giving a really comprehensive look at what's going on inside your body. And then we'll create an actionable plan for you to incorporate different recommendations through foods, supplements, lifestyle changes that you can make in order to try to get those biomarkers that we're analyzing into optimized zones for you. And those will be based on goals that you'll tell us that you have for yourself and certain characteristics that you're already doing, how you live, how you eat, how you sleep, how you train.
It's huge. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really giving you, what we say, it's giving you the inside look of to what actually is going on inside your body. How is your nutrition? How is your training? How is your recovery actually affecting your day-to-day life? You're getting a black and white answer. You don't have to second guess. You don't have to leave that up in the air wondering, am I eating the right things? Is my training too hard? Can I push it harder? And things like that.
The answer is yes on both of those.
Unquestionably, yes.
Always.
No, what was kind of cool about mine too was that I'd had a blood test a couple months before, and so I got to, you can actually upload those results into it, so it was pretty cool to see the difference. Because I mean, before that I wasn't intermittent fasting, and then to do the intermittent fasting was pretty cool to see just the difference in some of the stuff. A lot of it didn't change much, but there were some things that changed.
What did that change for you?
My testosterone, which I don't know if was how much we were training, games, like new baby at the house, whatever, but my testosterone jumped pretty good. My free testosterone is not great, but the actual just testosterone numbers, I was trying to look that up, but it jumped like 300 or 400 points.
Wow.
Or whatever, and then, but my free testosterone is still not that great.
And we kind of talked about a little bit.
The SHBG is high, so.
That's something that most everybody at Mayhem has paid attention to. This was just kind of like a master's level of detail that was really valuable.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if you look in, the CrossFit space and just sports in general, so many people are into the macro counting and things like that, which is awesome. And it was just kind of another layer to add to the sports background. But this, to me, is really the highest level or epitome of like, if you're changing your diet and you're going to all these great lengths, why would you not be looking in your blood to actually see? Because you can be hitting your macros every day, but if you're deficient in these certain things, you're still going to be suffering from a performance standpoint down the road. Yeah.
And the CrossFit industry as a whole is really a Me Too industry. So if people are seeing that you're an accomplished athlete and you're taking this supplement or you're eating this way, chances are they're going to be like, I need to take that supplement. I need to eat this way.
To try this
but
too.
You may not need to take all of those supplements.
Yes.
You can just dial it back to one or two single ingredient supplements like a vitamin D if you're low or deficient in that area, and incorporate certain foods that you may, not be incorporating into your diet, even if, you really need those. So it is nice to take the guessing game out of the equation.
And to be able to compare it for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
What are your guys' backgrounds? How did you guys get into Inside Tracker?
So I come from more of a sports background. I have played sports my entire life. I played tennis in college, and then right after college, worked at ESPN, and then I worked for a nutrition company in international sales there. Fast forward a couple of years, I moved to the burbs, wanted to start building a family, found CrossFit with my sister, who actually works in the CrossFit industry as well. And she said, the CEO of Inside Tracker, which she had used the product for, she said, he's looking for someone with sales experience, has worked for a nutrition company, and is a CrossFitter. And I would say I'm a CrossFitter in like the loosest sense of the word, but the stars kind of aligned. So
let me get you my resume.
So that's how I found the company. And I would say 10 years ago, if you asked me what my goals would be with Inside Tracker, it would have been, performance based. But now that I'm getting older, my goals are just to live longer so I can be there for my kids and just be a healthier person. So it's been a really kind of like a soul searching and finding myself journey just with the company.
Yeah.
So I've been a lifelong athlete, hockey player my whole life. Always been into health, fitness. I played at a pretty high level through prep school. and into college. And then once that stopped, I was kind of looking for that competitive edge, or, the next thing that can kind of keep my competitive wheels turning. And CrossFit was a super easy and natural transition for that. My cousins got me into it. I was definitely skeptical at first, like I think everybody is. And then I tried my first workout, and from that moment on, it was hooked. I think Murph was my first workout. I did
You were
that
hooked after Murph?
Sorry?
Did you say Murph was your first
Murph was my
workout?
first
You were
workout.
hooked after Murph?
Yeah, so you're crazy.
Well done. Well done.
So I was at the university gym, and my cousins were texting me, and they're like, it was Memorial Day, and they're like, we're doing this thing called Memorial Day, or Memorial Day Murph. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. Like, what is it? And he told me what it was. And I was like, oh, I could easily run on the treadmill.
Yeah.
I have a pull-up bar. I can do everything there.
Yeah.
So I did that. And the treadmill was like on a different level. It was downstairs. So I had to go up and down the stairs. And I remember he told me what his time was. And of course, he had a vest on. I didn't wear a vest. So I was like, okay, if I can just beat an hour, I think it'll be okay. So I set the treadmill to a certain speed, knowing that if I just keep this speed, I'm going to beat the hour. And I almost passed out. And I just didn't want to be that guy that got shot off the end of the treadmill.
Gym fails.
Those are the best videos.
Yeah.
To be fair, he was almost that guy today when he was running on the treadmill with you
It's
guys.
a very similar feeling.
I actually would have applauded your efforts, because if you go that hard and you fly off the back of a treadmill,
Yeah, you're
you're
good.
really giving it your
And you're
all.
getting invited back. So I wish you
You
took.
didn't fly off the back of the treadmill this morning, so you're good.
Yeah. That was a good one.
So that was that's like my sport background, and I'm almost done with my PhD in the immunology and genetics field.
Wow.
What position did you play in hockey?
Sorry?
Backed up. I said, what position did you play in hockey?
Defense.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, it was defenseman. Didn't really I had stone hands.
Yeah, okay.
They put me in the
Yeah,
back.
do what you gotta do. You can skate though. So
Yeah, I was always one of the bigger guys, so
does that mean you slam the people into the walls mostly?
I slammed the people into the walls. Yeah,
I actually didn't know there was offense and defense in hockey other than the goalkeeper.
Of course.
Not to
Yeah.
sound ignorant.
That sounds right.
But
Not to sound ignorant.
why? They have sticks and they go around with the puck and they're all
Right.
trying to achieve the goal. So,
Right.
no pun intended. The goal. Goal.
To achieve
I
the goal.
was
They all try to
very,
achieve the
How
goal.
many people are on the ice? How many?
I'm
This is kind of a trick question, but not really.
going to say 9.
9 on one team?
Yeah. 18 total.
Not even close.
it's about double.
Really?
Yeah,
There's-
five aside.
5 and 5, but then you have a goalie.
Yeah.
So 6.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Double my guess?
12
or
total.
Half of your guess.
There's 12 total.
Yeah,
but
you
really,
guessed
you only
There's
have,
only 6 people
you only
on
have
each
5,
team?
You only have 5 guys skating. Yeah.
And a
That's not-
There's
goalie.
usually 2 defensemen and 3 offense.
That seems odd.
And it gets pretty tight out there.
Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah.
I just what's the thing when there's it seems like no one's on the other side and the one guy can flick it and if it can stroll across and if it goes,
Stroll?
oh, and the goalie's gone. What is that
You
called?
pull the goalie, so you have an extra skater.
Yeah.
So then you have 6
And then how come that
skaters.
puck ends up on the other end alone and no one's there to get it?
because.
Anyway, I really like that play. I think it's cool.
Wow,
That's my
that
favorite.
play.
Okay, so look.
Hold
if
on,
you
let's
cross-
talk
hold
through
on,
this.
yeah, hold
Let's
on.
just slow down.
So there's
Let's get
lines.
this right.
There's lines. So you have a blue line on either end. You have the center line. The blue line, the puck. If you're on offense, the puck has to go in before anybody can on
On the blue
offense.
line?
On the blue line, the puck has to go in before anybody on offense can go inside there. And if the puck is inside that blue line and stays inside that blue line, everybody on offense can be within that blue line. But if that puck goes over the blue line, everybody has to clear out. And so what happens is you're trying to get, if you pull the goalie, you're going to put 6 people inside there. What happens is somebody will try to flick it over because there's no goalie and score a goal.
Anyway, it looked cool. That's my favorite play in baseball is when the shortstop gets it and he catches it on one foot and throws it to first. That's my favorite
So
play.
you're
Hockey,
saying if it makes it into the 6 hole.
what?
Never mind.
Anyway.
So hockey is your sports
Sorry.
That was my
background.
sport.
Sorry,
I
yeah, we
transitioned
went
into
around.
CrossFit. I've been doing CrossFit for about 7 years, while I'm doing my PhD, and so just naturally, Inside Tracker is almost a perfect combination of my science background with my athletic background. It was a really, really perfect fit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love working with the athletes, and I can still kind of geek out a little bit on
Yeah.
the science while still, talking about performance, talking
And be your
about
own case study, really.
Yeah, yep.
That's awesome. What would you say is in CrossFitters, what do you find to be the greatest deficiency if there, I mean, that might be too general. I don't know, but is there something that you often see?
Yeah, so we can definitely, you can cross out someone's name or cross out their athletic profile, and if you put blood work down in front of me, I could say, oh, that's a CrossFit athlete, probably. A lot of times what we see is their overtraining markers. So like creatine kinase, it's a muscle breakdown marker. Liver enzyme markers, which are also a sign of overtraining, those are probably pretty high. Testosterone probably is going to be low. At the same time, your cortisol, which is a stress hormone, could be kind of high as well. You know, every workout is a pretty significant stress on the body, high intensity training.
Optimized.
So,
Nope, never
Which
mind.
one is that?
The AST was high.
Yeah, there was one in the testosterone. I had one that was high and one was low. I have a question.
another thing interestingly that we do see, and maybe not so much anymore, but some of the nutrition markers, like your blood glucose might be off, probably pretty high. Your triglycerides might be pretty high because, you know, I think back a couple years ago, people had the notion that especially if you did CrossFit, you could out-train a bad diet.
Yeah.
Who started that?
Yeah, good job, dumpster diet over there. I'm just kidding.
So, but not so much anymore. People are, you know, everyone's really realizing how beneficial it is to track your nutrition and how much more of a competitive edge that gets you.
Is there any, I don't know how to say this the right way. Is there anything that you often see as a deficiency that when fixed improves performance dramatically? Like, is there like something like, I don't know, say, I'm just making it up. Say it was like vitamin D. Say you saw a lot of people deficient in this and you see people, you can change that quickly.
You know what we see a ton is glucose is high for people because
ask about that.
Yeah, it just comes down to I feel like when paleo used to be a very popular diet, people got away from incorporating fat soluble fibers.
I can just eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
It's paleo.
So something that we literally tell everyone, we're like, eat oatmeal. Just eat oatmeal and that'll help your glucose. And it's such an easy fix, and it's something that you can, even if you have no
What about
time.
Raisin Bran? Because that's what I've been doing lately.
Yeah, you
Raisin Bran.
cereals are good. No, cereals are good.
You know, anything that has, like Carrie said, soluble fiber. And that's not going to just affect your glucose levels, but that's going to hit, like we tell people oatmeal because it hits 4 or 5 different biomarkers to help improve it. Your triglycerides, your cholesterol, your HDL, LDL, that really hits it there. When I got my first blood test, my blood glucose was high. And that was one of the things that I had a recommendation was eat oatmeal. So I started doing that, and I could definitely see a big difference in my training. Like I just have more energy. I always train usually at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So I didn't feel like sluggish coming into the gym.
How long does it take when you adjust something nutritionally to really see changes?
You could probably see changes like a month out.
Okay.
We really say, like, because you have to figure it takes time for you to implement those recommendations, and then once they're implemented at a consistent basis, then it takes time to see that in your blood. So, you know, we would never recommend anyone getting their blood work done like sooner than maybe 2 or 3 months, like 2 months at the absolute earliest, probably.
Was there anything that we gave you that you started implementing that you could feel a difference with? Maybe not nutritionally, but supplement wise, or
Did you start that backstrap molasses or whatever?
That was
That was disgusting.
no, that was who did was that
Tasia and Kristen. I did it
And
for a little
Haley.
while.
Did you do
Supposed
it?
to bring your iron up or whatever, but man,
so gross.
stuff was terrible.
that's like my high school cross country coach used to make all the runners do that because there's so many
It's supposed
runners
to help
that
with your iron and
Yeah.
your blood.
I started eating chia seeds and oatmeal. And the other big one was the magnesium for recovery. When we talked about that, you gave me that brand of magnesium that you were using.
ZMA. Just ZMA.
Yeah, ZMA. Yeah. And then I started
Helps me sleep and recover a lot better.
using it, eating it in the evening time. That was one of the recommendations. I was taking it at the wrong time. So to optimize, use it on an empty stomach in the evening time. Yeah.
Are most of the things, so when you're like looking at these markers and things, are most of the things that you guys suggest to people nutritional, or are there other, I mean, they just mentioned supplements, are there things like that? Are there more drastic things, or is it just usually, I mean, I noticed a lot of this, you guys give the foods to try and things like that, but is that your primary go-to?
I think I would say like 75% of our recommendations are probably nutritional based. They definitely have the most research backing those recommendations. They're probably some of the easiest ones to implement. But if you did scroll down, like if you get your results and you see like the top 3 or 4 recommendations, if you were to expand that and you can scroll down and see the other ones, you will start seeing things of altering your training style, which like when we deal with high competitive athletes, that's a really hard one for them to change, like for them to change their training or implement extra rest days, like chances are they're not going to do that. So yeah, we do definitely focus on the nutritional ones, but there's other lifestyle factors that we give recommendations for too.
One of the things I really appreciated was that their goals in CrossFit are way different than mine. Mm-hmm. They're trying to win a world championship, and We're old. I'm just trying to stay fit.
Just trying to stay alive.
Yeah. It's about health and lifestyle. And so you're able to take that person's goals, and implement it and make it specific to who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, and we take into consideration, like you said, what your goals are, and then your nutrition, lifestyle, how you're eating already, and if you're willing to take supplements, what supplements you're already taking, so that if we are giving you recommendations, they're not going to be a repeat of what you're already doing, and they're not going to be unuseful to you if you're trying to eat in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So we really try to make it or cater it to, make sure it's personalized to what you have going on in your life and what you're looking for. Mm-hmm.
The cool thing about the supplement recommendations are, for things like vitamin D, like we know that really the only way you can increase your vitamin D levels is to get more sunlight. And for someone who lives like in the Northeast, we're inside for the majority of the year, even if you're living in the South, and you have a desk job, like you're inside. So when we give the supplement recommendations based on your blood work and based on your current nutrition, we actually give you the exact dose that you need to take.
Wow.
To optimize your values. So that's really useful. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. What were some of the things that you saw in yours, Silver?
I think I had really been paying attention to my blood work, and that's something I had been really paying attention to. So I wasn't really surprised about anything overall, other than the details like we talked about. Some of the recommendations, my glucose was one of the things that was high. And so I was able to start eating a little bit different and implementing that. And then the recovery piece was the big piece for me. Mm-hmm. So remember, I had just got over the rhabdo thing.
Oh man, this was probably like a good time for you to have a blood test. But you're like a different human being now.
Yeah. No question.
I even think he looks different than the last time we were here. I told him when he walked in, I was like, wow, Jim. Like, not in like a weird way, but I was like, wow, Jim looks like lean. He looks like he might have aged backwards a little bit. He looks a little younger.
Yeah, we need to get into that a little bit later. The inner age, we need to talk about that. Not right now. No. Hold on, we're not done. We'll get to that.
Elly's old.
I am not. Why you got to stir the pot?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I had just got cleared, and I was getting ready to get some more blood work done, and then they came. So it was really good timing. And I'm interested in my hormone levels, so that was important to me to understand what that was and to pay attention to that. And then just the details, the recovery details were super important to me. So I don't know, for me, it was some of it just confirmed what was going on. Mm-hmm. The whole inner age thing really threw me. I thought for sure I would crush all of you guys.
I mean,
I really did.
How old did you think how old were you on your inner age?
93 or something.
It can only swing 20 ways in one direction.
Oh, really?
The best inner age that we've seen is Dave Hippensteel.
Yeah.
His biomarkers are always like out of control for, he's a master's athlete. Right. He's always in unbelievable shape. But his is 18 years younger than he is, and he's 63.
Mine was like right on. And I thought, honestly, I was like doing it. I was like, man, mine's going to be the worst of all these guys.
You were younger, right?
I was like, half a year younger, like a year younger. And
I was like 9 or 10 years older.
18 pounds of kale, who talks about how great, how many all these different antioxidants that she takes and parabens and all that.
Your age was like 57,
and she was 47 years old. 47, right?
Hey, no, I just started taking, Jim turned me onto these like mushrooms.
Wow. Let's clarify. We're not talking about shrooms. We're not. Let's clarify.
Let's also clarify. That's not one of our recommendations.
Inside Tracker. What they say and what Jim says different.
I've had 4 scoops of mushrooms today, so if I'm not a superhero by the end of the week, I'm gonna be ticked.
Mushrooms?
What?
What are you guys are taking shrooms?
No, that is not. She didn't explain that
really
well at all.
fun trip for us.
There was a
this
kind
time.
of a. What's the name of the company?
Stigmatic.
Four Sigmatic. They have a coffee, like a matcha, and a coffee that has some mushroom stuff in it that's supposed to help with lion's mane.
Yeah.
It has lion's mane in it?
Lion's mane, which is a kind of a
doesn't
mushroom.
That make you feel like you'd be a superhero?
like, you guys now are like doing inside trafficking of animals too, like rhino horn. You guys doing that?
No, I'm taking the.
Elly didn't need any help, like being super weird with that stuff.
Listen,
weird.
I really didn't do anything, honestly. I was just doing what I'm doing, and
so
she's like...
I went down the rabbit hole. I wasn't going to do the lion's mane thing because I don't need superior
This isn't
focus.
real lion's mane just before we like have PETA call or something like that. It's a mushroom called lion's
Are you
mane.
guys clear about what we're talking about?
Okay.
At least you understand?
I've actually never heard of
I've never heard of this
lion's
either.
mane before.
Well, so 4 stigmatic is like a...
4 Sigmatic.
Sigmatic. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
4
saying the wrong
Sigmatic.
thing. It's a...
Let me look this
They
Yeah.
think that like...
Shout out
you
to
look
them.
it up. Or I can look it up. I have the computer.
All their products are some sort of mushroom-based product.
Okay.
And so they do coffee.
Lion's mane fungus.
They do coffee. They do tea, and then they have some like
4 Sigmatic.
what's that product called? It's kind of like a mind clarity product.
Right. I can't...
Can't remember what it's called. Do you have it up on the?
Oh, theirs?
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called.
Alpha on it has Alpha
Right.
Brain, and
How
I've
did it
used
taste?
Alpha Brain.
Okay.
Well, okay, so basically it's another superfood type thing. So they're saying like these
Right.
certain
The
mushrooms,
newest
like some,
superfood that will die in a year. That's what you're saying.
yeah, some are
what
for
I
memory. So I did the. Am I saying this wrong? Adaptogen.
Yep.
Research
so
has found
maca,
that lions-
ashwagandha, and something else are
Adaptogens, yeah.
So I got that blend along with this. That's just like supposed to be overall, and it's teaspoon. So you just mix it into anything. So I mixed one with like my super greens and stuff, and that's fine. It still tastes like dirt water.
Yeah. They don't taste good, honestly.
But I put some in my coffee at lunch, and I'm like, I asked Cam, I'm like, Cam, can I, should I just put this in here? Do you think it'll taste bad? She's like, yeah, it'll be fine.
Awful.
She turns around, and I was like,
Good.
Research
Choke
has
it
found
down.
that lion's mane may protect against dementia, reduce mild symptoms of anxiety and depression, help repair nerve damage. It also has strong anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and immune-boosting abilities, and has been shown to lower risk of heart disease, cancer, ulcers, and diabetes.
Now you know why I'm taking it.
In animals.
and that's why Silver told me to
And
take
it says in animals.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm an animal.
it. You savage.
So it's very important to note that our recommendations are backed by years of scientific research.
It wasn't just throwing mushrooms.
Keep this on track. All
Sorry,
right.
sorry,
Keep
yes.
this on track.
Animals with dementia.
It does.
How do they
you
figure
know
that out?
I don't know.
Yeah, how do you
got
know
a
you're-
crazy mouse, you inject it.
I don't know.
You see what happens? I don't
Gipper
know.
ran into a wall and tried to run off a bluff, so maybe he needs
Gipper's
some lion's
special.
mane.
How do
Anyway,
we get down that road? I'm so sorry.
I know. I apologize.
Sounds like I need
that.
I would. Can we go through some of this test and just maybe you guys give us some insight on it? I would love to just kind of we can compare who's better on this test too.
Whose
So,
age?
I didn't bring mine in. I didn't even think about
I
it.
meant
I'm
to
so
text
sorry.
you and ask you to print it out, but
I'm sorry.
you can pull it up if you want to pull it up.
Nah, I don't really want to.
Okay, so the first one on there is the sugar group, metabolism and energy. I'm just gonna let you
Okay, let's do it.
give it a whirl if you want to. I
mine
mean, we don't
first
have to go
one's-
down that.
So this
path,
is kind of like what if Jimmy's doing a consult. This is pretty much how it goes, anyways. You just go
Okay.
through the
Yeah.
biomarkers,
And
and
when
then
we say Jimmy, we don't mean me. We mean
We don't mean Silver.
Let's be clear.
Oh, go just do this.
Oh, yeah, but I want to understand. I want to.
But each of these has your numbers, and it has a green if it's good, a red if it's bad, and a yellow if it's moderate or whatever.
So I actually do. I like looking at the groups because it's you're essentially grouping several biomarkers that are all involved in like the same physiological process, or they could all be obviously grouped together, and it gives you a quick glance of that group as a whole. Instead of going, you don't have to go individually biomarker by biomarker. Some people love to do that. They, to geek out on the numbers. Other people just like looking at their overall, like where they stand overall in their groups. So your sugar group, That's going to have like obviously your blood glucose levels.
Wait, so why are mine says needs work? So you're saying eat oatmeal?
Yeah, so you can see, I know like we're on camera here and they can't actually see it, but you're going to have your actual biomarker result that's going to be on the left, and then on the right is going to be your recommendations, all the food-based ones that we do, and it's actually going to give you the specific foods that you can implement in your diet that will have an effect on that particular biomarker.
So when Rich said green, yellow, or red, he was talking about where your biomarkers fall in relation to a graph. Red meaning you're at risk, call your doctor. Okay. Yellow meaning needs work. So here's the recommendations that we're going to give you. And green means you're optimized. So these optimized zones that we create for you are going to be different than a normal zone that you would get from your doctor. Just because your normal zone at a doctor is going to be the same as a 65-year-old lady who may not get off the couch. So we've created these zones. And we take into consideration the characteristics that you've told us about yourself, age, ethnicity, again, how you eat, how you live, how you train, and what your goals are. So, moving on.
Yeah. So that, like Carrie said, that yellow range, that's the clinical range that any physician would use. So if you get your blood work done by your doctor and you never get a call back because everything's normal, you fall somewhere within that yellow zone. But we take it a step further and we're going to say, well, that's okay, but we can get better for you. So when you see here, like your sugar group, it needs work. That's taking into account all the biomarkers that are in the sugar group. So you could have, for example,
how high were you?
It's not that high.
Yeah, not that high. What was yours?
84.
What?
84.
Mine was, I just actually looked at that earlier. I think it was 89.
Mine was 79 on my pre-test.
Oh, 82 was mine. What was yours?
84.
Ha! Beat ya.
That's pretty good.
Still better.
Some of these are like, the pages are kind of cut off, so we have to find which graph corresponds to.
Glucose. Oh, that was the 82. Gotcha. Lipid group.
Yeah.
These have metabolism and weight control all in.
Oh, it's just
together, and then.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. So what did we just start with?
So we started with the sugar group. So overall, your sugar group, it says for you that it needs work. So then if we flip the page and that sugar group has your fasting blood glucose levels, it looks like we have right under that is your lipid group. So your lipids are going to have your LDL cholesterol, your HDL cholesterol, your total cholesterol. So even like your lipid group is a little high as well. So that's taking into account.
What would cause that? Why do I have?
Well, I see here that your LDL, which is considered the bad cholesterol,
my
is
LDL's
high.
bad?
LDL's a little high.
What?
You need some oatmeal.
I just need
some
some
oatmeal.
Less kale.
More oatmeal?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the mushrooms are going to heal everything.
Yeah.
I just need. Are your lipids high?
Yep.
Why are yours high?
Because I didn't eat enough oatmeal.
Oatmeal.
I was actually on the test before. I was 126, and this current test was 142, and I was actually eating a lot more oats and stuff like that on the first test. So I'm interested to see if I do another test because I have been trying to eat a little bit more of that stuff and see if it lowers it. But mine was 142 on this last one, so it was high.
It's cool too when you take these tests and your next test will be another snapshot in where you're at.
The comparison is going to be cool.
If you go down, my triglycerides went from 95 to 79 on this last test, so they went down.
Yeah.
And you can make a little notation of what was going on in your life.
Yeah.
So you can be like, oh, at that time I was like either training super hard or it was a very stressful time in my life. Like that can make a difference in
a lot of that stuff, especially the hormone stuff.
Right.
So if we look at like your liver group, your liver enzyme group, overall, again, that says it needs some work. It's yellow. I guess I'm not trying to pick on you here.
That's okay. No, I want to learn.
Listen, I'm just going by what the paper says.
Dang, jeez, my liver.
So that's taking into account that your ALT is high.
I was going to say, you better cut out the tequila.
Your GGT is good. Your GGT is fine.
GGT is pretty good. And
what is that?
That's one where if you were an alcoholic, that one would be pretty high.
Oh, see, you guys can't give me any credit. I have good GGT.
It actually, like for liver disease caused by alcohol, it will.
That's you're an alcoholic if your GGT's messed up.
It's a ratio between, I think, AST and GGT, which is how a doctor would say. But so your ALT is a little high. Your AST is high.
What does that mean?
So these are your liver enzymes. Anytime that your liver is taxed, I guess, or your liver is working hard, it has to produce a lot more enzymes to do its function. AST and ALT are also found in your muscle cells too. So when you break those down, it can leach out into your bloodstream and it will be detected by a test. So I'm going to say I haven't looked at your creatine kinase, which it's a little high. It's not too bad. But you can say that maybe the day before you had a pretty intense workout.
The conversation with, hey, Rich, we're getting a blood test tomorrow. They say maybe we should go light today. Yeah. No. And that's good. That's just how we, and you guys said that was fine.
But at least you didn't go on the bender the night before and eat a huge McDonald's meal.
I just figured it was best to see what our body actually is.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
And that's great. Like,
so this just means I worked out hard.
You worked out pretty hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are we looking at, creatine kinase? Or kinase?
Are you looking at the
looking at
liver enzymes?
function and toxicity. I've got ALT, albumin, AST, GGT.
Yeah, what's your AST? That's
34.
what we're looking at. What?
34.
34. What page was that on?
All these pages are
mine was 31, so you worked out even harder than I did.
But now the values, the number value is going to be different for a man versus for a woman. So
okay, so maybe we worked out the same.
Yeah, so I even tell a lot of people, like, maybe don't focus so much on the number. You don't really have to focus on the number because our graphs make sense of it for you.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's neat.
So, yeah.
Okay, so I just have to remember I have good GGT.
Yeah.
Totally.
Wow.
Okay, so creatine
That doesn't mean that you should drink more.
Yeah, it doesn't give you an excuse.
Wait, it's Wednesday?
But there is resveratrol in red wine, which is what I'm saying. So
Mine's day, by the way, in case you're wondering.
So your testosterone is optimized, and a lot of people think that only men should be or should be interested in testosterone, but it's just as important for women too, especially female athletes. So that was optimized. That's very good. Your SHBG.
So yeah, what is? Okay, sorry. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So is there? Perfect. Okay. So SHBG it's called sex hormone binding globulin. We don't have to worry about what that scientific word.
Gotcha.
But essentially, the way that testosterone for, like, Rich, you were talking about your free testosterone. The way it works for a man is your testosterone is either going to be free or it's going to be bound to a protein that transports it throughout the body. So SHBG is one of those carrier proteins. Your total testosterone level is going to be literally the total amount of testosterone in your body. So it could be either free or it could be bound. So total is the whole picture. And then your free testosterone is what's bioavailable or what can be active. If it's bound to a protein that's being transported throughout the body, it can't be used for its anabolic functions, building muscle and increasing your recovery. So if your total testosterone is optimized, but and Rich said his free testosterone was low, most likely
you're right.
Your SHBG is high.
Yeah, I had free testosterone when I pre-test was 458. This test was 896.
Jeez.
However, my SHBG went from 62 to 177.
Right. So we do know that really high bouts of high intensity interval training or a really tough workout will increase your SHBG levels. That causes all the testosterone in your body to be bound to that carrier protein. So see, your total testosterone remains the same. It remains optimized. But now we have a difference in the ratio of free testosterone versus bound testosterone.
And for women, we look at DHEA.
Yeah. So DHEAS, which is the precursor to testosterone or estrogen. It's it's DHEAS.
I did learn, however, about the SHBG, that parabens in like shampoo and things like that. Yeah. That's why I told you guys, if you don't pay attention to the soap and the stuff you use, that gets bound up by that. It was some study that they did on a football team that they all had really low testosterone, and they found out that it was because of they were all using the same shampoo in the locker rooms, and it was binding up their. I'm going to mess up the.
Or
acronym.
Increasing their SHBG levels. And then in turn that binds up all your free testosterone. So that's why, these groups, like we said before, like it's cool to look at the group as a whole but you get even more information when you dive in biomarker to biomarker. Because if we just looked at your total testosterone,
that makes sense.
I'm
So
fine.
you need to see. That's really cool. Okay.
But you might not have, like in your case, your DHEAS was a little low, and most likely, and like we saw, your SHBG was high. So you don't have as much of that hormone bioavailable to be used for the purpose that it needs to be used for.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. This is awesome.
And it's cool to see, like, this is the first time I'm like really seeing your results laid out in front of me, but we saw the liver enzymes were a little bit high. Your SHBG was high. Cortisol is also on the higher side. It's not optimized. It's not terrible, but so we're kind of seeing a trend here. Like all these markers are, or
so
everything
what is
that's
this telling you?
Is that you're training.
We're just killing you in here.
Yeah, we're just killing you.
Slowly.
Yeah. So maybe like you said, like the day before you had an intense training session. Well, these biomarkers are telling me exactly that. So if you didn't tell me that, I probably would have came to you and said, hey, so what was your training like the past week? Like, were you recovering enough?
Intense.
Yeah. So this is like where we tell, and it's sometimes hard to talk to athletes or tell athletes this, but rest days are important. Whether it's a complete rest day or an active recovery day, or you get out of the gym and you go do something else, you go do yoga, like those are important. That's going to allow these biomarkers to become optimized. And it's only going to give you more energy, or it's only going to put you in a better place going into the next day of training, or into a competition. So, that's like we recommend, like for you guys, like if you get tested like a week or two before the games or a week or two before a sanctional event. So that's going to give you enough time to implement some quick changes if you need to.
Wow,
if you have a couple weeks, but now exactly how you guys are, how your bodies are going into a really important event.
Yeah.
Wow.
And to Jim's point, and with all of the mindset work that he does, we're starting to look at incorporating more recommendations for lifestyle with the mindset approach, just because it is, so important.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like for cortisol, like I think everyone knows, like cortisol, we're not just talking about physical stress here. That can be emotional stress as well.
And that's what, gotcha.
Yeah. So it can be both. Like cortisol level, your cortisol levels will go up if you have stress or increased stress on your body. But that stress can come from physical stress. Like I would say this is probably physical stress, looking at your liver enzymes, looking at your CK levels, your hormone levels. But if, for example, if we have a client that comes to us and those physical stress markers, like your hormone levels, your liver enzymes, if those are all normal, but your cortisol is through the roof, I'm going to say, man, you need to relax. Like, what's going on in your life that's causing this? Like, are you getting enough sleep? Because cortisol is the first thing to go up when you lose sleep. And we see the cortisol is going to shoot up and testosterone is going to plummet.
I think for me, when I first started doing blood work, this was exactly what the doctor told me, because I was in a space maybe 2.5 years ago where I was super stressed out, but I didn't even know. I thought I was doing fine. Yeah, I don't feel stressed out. What are you talking about? Kind of a thing. And he was able to use some of the blood work and tell me exactly what you just said. Like, so what's going on in your life? Let's dig a little bit deeper, because it's not something physical we're dealing with. What else is happening? And I was under a ton of stress and emotional stuff, and that was important.
Yeah, and it works the other way too. When I first got one of my first blood test done, I felt like I was extremely stressed. Like I think it was maybe right before the Open started a couple years ago. So like I was, kind of stressed about that. I had a lot going on at work. I had a lot going on in my lab. So I felt very stressed. But then I got my blood work back and my cortisol was optimized. So it can go both ways, like, maybe I'm not as stressed as I am. It's also the perception of it. So that's why, like, knowing this, seeing it on paper, now I have I have an idea of what's going on inside my body, and I might not be doing as bad as I feel.
Yeah.
Wow. That is big. That's really big.
So we had the stress, inflammation.
Yeah. So inflammation levels are really good.
Which is, I feel like that's surprising, given how much we work out. I thought everyone was just walking around inflamed.
So
we actually did this really interesting study where we took 1,200 CrossFitters that are in our database, and we compared them to the rest of the people who have done Inside Track in our database.
Wow.
And we have a lot of fit people who are in our database. We have a lot of professional athletes, a lot of endurance, and we found that CrossFitters were generally more healthy than the rest of the population who has done Inside Tracker. And are you looking at the overall marker of inflammation?
HSCRP.
So that was lower for CrossFitters. The LDL was lower. The HDL was higher. The triglycerides were lower. So it was just so interesting to see that CrossFitters doing what we're doing are a healthier
actually impacts your
population.
health in a good way.
So HSCRP is a global inflammation marker in your body. So basically, what is the overall level of inflammation in your body? That's a pretty simple way to look at that. So we do know that participating in regular exercise will help lower those inflammation levels. So the other markers that we looked at, your liver enzymes, your CK, your sex hormones, those could kind of be a more local look of exactly like how your body is handling the day-to-day stresses of your training. But HSCRP, I think, takes a lot more time to change over time. But overall, your body is in an optimized state in terms of inflammation. And then even to turn the page on that, the next ones we look at, this is like the CBC, your complete blood cell count. So these are looking at your white blood cells. Those are the cells of your immune system. And they even go into depth of the actual specific types of white blood cells.
Rich, how's your inflammation?
All mine were optimized.
Okay.
My HSCRP actually dropped from 0.6 to 0.3 between tests.
So was that optimized?
Yeah, it says optimized. And then my total neutrophils was 2,400 is optimized, it says.
So when we look at your white blood cell counts, this would be a great marker of, like, if you were sick, if you had a cold or something like that, we could see that in your white blood cell count, because your immune cells are activated. There's probably more of them in your body trying to fight off whatever infection that you have.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's cool. That's cool to see. And any glaring things that come out of that would be more of you need to consult your physician about that. If we see like plummeting levels of white blood cells or something like that, or really, really high levels.
So what's this one that's high? That's the...
So it's an eosinophil that is...
Ooh, say that 3 times fast.
That is part of your innate immune response. So if you have any type of virus, it's like one of the first responder cells to encounter that virus and to attack it. Why that's high?
Was I about to get a cold?
Yeah, that one I don't know, because all your other...
I have the flu the next day. I'm optimized, and then I got this one...
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because your other white blood cells are perfectly optimized. Every single one except that one. So
I'm pretty sure you need to see a doctor. That's Jim Silver's recommendation.
So I know it looks bad because I'm the expert in the immune system, but I can't answer why that single one is high, but every other one is
you're
perfect.
saying that's
doctor.
What was it? Which
that's
one
a precursor for... Yeah, what was your eosinophils? Is it...
130?
It's not a precursor.
Mine just says optimal.
No, it's just another type of white blood cell, another type of immune cell in your body.
But they would be heightened if you were sick.
If you were sick, but I wouldn't say that you were sick, because every other immune cell is perfectly optimized. So maybe that's I don't know.
You're an anomaly.
Is it bad to have?
You're a unicorn.
Yes.
Yeah. Or you're a freak. I'm just kidding.
That's more on that.
It's fine. I'll take high
to make jokes here.
eosinophils.
I know that eosinophils are not. They're not a very abundant white blood cell in your body. There's very, very few of them. They're involved in like the allergic response. So if you had an allergy to something,
I'm not allergic to anything. That's
yeah.
odd.
So that is weird. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, sorry, I can't answer that one. Still on those. Okay, so now we're into some of the vitamins.
Interesting.
Yeah, vitamin D it's optimized, but it's just on the low levels of being optimized.
Uh-oh.
So
I was riding the line on that
riding
one.
the line. So you probably wouldn't get a recommendation to supplement that because it's optimized. But it would be interesting to see like if when you test again, like is it still right on that line or did that increase or
why is
decrease?
vitamin D so important? I know
Vitamin D is involved in so many things, so many different processes in your body. It's involved in calcium uptake, so strong bones. It's really involved in creating a healthy immune system again. I like to take my vitamin D at night because vitamin D is a precursor to, it's a high-level precursor to ultimately melatonin, which makes you sleep, or it indicates or initiates your natural sleep rhythm.
That's why that article told you not to wear sunscreen.
That's not true. He says that sunscreen gives you cancer.
The article that I read said the likelihood of you getting cancer versus heart disease because lack of vitamin D is worth, because most of us are only out in the sun for 3 or 4 months tops.
Yeah.
You're not going to get skin unless you're just like getting completely sunburn baked every single day. You need the vitamin D versus the amounts of skin cancer.
Right.
There was an article that I read, but I sent it to them and she freaked out because she's all hippie about.
I just protect my skin. I'm a hippie about skincare.
So like vitamin D, like in terms of the sleep.
And you always had such a good tone.
Oh, thank you.
Do you supplement?
Not in your voice.
On vitamin D?
Yeah. Do you take a vitamin D supplement?
Like 3 days ago I started, and I
Okay.
I don't even know why. I think I read something about it, and I was like, ooh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Wow, you're trying a lot of new things lately.
I am.
Lion's mane,
Yep.
vitamin D.
Scoops of mushroom and vitamin D have been
I
on
like
my...
Okay.
So I should do that, though, right?
I would like to see like where your levels are at now.
Okay.
Like, is it still riding that low line, or it would just be interesting to see where they are, because you wouldn't get a recommendation in this case because it's optimized.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it might be low, but it's
Rich,
optimized.
how's your vitamin D?
Optimized 40.
That's because you don't wear sunscreen.
That's it.
We get into B12. That's involved in cell production. So especially like red blood cells, you need vitamin B12 to produce red blood cells. That's optimized.
How's your B12?
I don't know. I don't see it on here.
I feel like Rich had a lot of optimized biomarkers, which I was secretly hoping it was going to be a little bit more interesting. It's like, give me some red.
The only real one I had that was way off was all my my HDL, my LDL mainly, and my total cholesterol. That was my real red stuff, but mostly I was green.
When I went to print yours off, I laughed out loud because it was like your food suggestions.
Yeah, that
I didn't
stuff.
Oh, did he get the cuttlefish one?
Cuttlefish.
Eel and snails, and I was like, oh.
Escargot.
What did they come up under for what biomarkers?
I don't have any
Mine's
idea. It
all
was just
mixed
Snails
literally like
probably for
Mine's all
iron.
mixed up, so I don't know.
they both like popped
B12,
up
I
and
saw
it
on
was
here
like
somewhere.
the
Maybe
four
for your-
suggestions.
Yeah.
You can switch those out. Just disclaimer, if you get recommendations for things that you are definitely not going to make, like I had one for cuttlefish, and I'm still microwaving a lot of food in my house, so I switched that one out. So
Yeah, that makes
you
sense.
can do that.
And then we kind of wrap up here with your electrolyte levels: sodium, potassium, magnesium, all optimized. Those are all very good.
Ooh.
Okay.
Rich, let's see which ones of yours are in the red.
Was there anything on there for you that was like glaring? That was like,
I'm not seeing anything glaring other than that eosinophil. We have to figure that out, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
Trice took a couple of mine. I just have the highlight ones. I'm like I said, the red. My MCV was red.
What's that?
It's an oxygen transport and blood function. That was
Yeah,
red.
MCV, I think it's mean corpuscular volume, so how big your red blood cells are.
Oh.
Yeah.
It says mine are too big.
You're
79
that.
to 92 is the range. Mine's 97.
Yeah. So the size, I'm not super solid on like there's so much that goes into red blood cell production and iron metabolism. But your red blood cells are some of the fastest cells that are produced in your body, and they rapidly die.
I can't wait for everybody to say, "Oh, Rich's testosterone double, and he has huge red blood cells."
Huge red blood cells.
You're really fit.
That's coming.
But what was the total number of red blood cells? Was that normal?
What number is that? Is it? Oh, red blood cell numbers.
Yeah, RBC.
4.7.
Yeah,
Which
that
is
was
on the lower
optimized.
end. So.
Okay, yeah. So
4.6 to 6.1 it says is my.
So that makes
optimal, and I was
sense. So
4.7.
like I said, red blood cells turn over very fast. So if you have an optimized red blood cell turnover and they're being produced and they die at an optimized rate, they really don't have an opportunity to get big. So you have a low, you have a little bit of a low level of red blood cells. So maybe like red blood cell turnover could be happening faster than it is.
Right.
So they're growing too big. They're not dying fast enough because there's not more being produced. Is that a simple way?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
As far as yellow was iron, my iron was yellow. My ferritin was yellow. My TS percentage was yellow.
What's the TS percentage?
That's your transfer and saturation. So like we talked about SHBG, that's a carrier protein for the sex hormones. Transferrin is a carrier protein for iron. Yeah, so iron is super important for your body. It is it's really critical in making hemoglobin. Hemoglobin carries all the oxygen in your red blood cells all throughout your body. So if you don't have enough iron or your iron levels are low, you're not going to have enough hemoglobin to transport all that oxygen throughout your body. So it's very similar to what we talked about with SHBG. If transferrin levels are really, really high, it's most likely going to be binding all that iron. So iron's not going to be available to be used to make hemoglobin. But I think hemoglobin is also in there as well. Right. So you're going to get, just like we see free testosterone, you'll see is that exactly what's going on?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Especially in women, we see a lot of low iron levels come back. And one of yours is ferritin, which is low.
That was mine.
This is yours.
Mine was just not optimal, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So that's your iron stores. And we see that, come back in people who have that low level will just say, I just don't have any energy. So it's nice to get that level back and to understand why.
I mean, I feel like most of these, this is huge. If you can, adjust these things.
Yeah, and that's where you're going to see like a major output change in the gym. If you optimize, and yours are pretty good, but if you optimize those red blood cell levels, you're going to see an increase in energy. You could probably see an increase of endurance in your workouts. You could be able to go longer.
Wow.
So yeah.
So why did you guys choose, or why were the biomarkers for inner age chosen to be the one that indicate that? Yeah,
so those are 5 biomarkers. Your inner age, it's your blood glucose levels, your ALT, it's testosterone, triglycerides, and
it's ALT, HSCRP, and vitamin D.
And HSCRP and vitamin D. So those are 5 proven biomarkers backed up by tons of scientific research that show it has an effect on longevity. So if we're optimizing those biomarkers, chances are longevity is going to be increased for you. So biologically, you're younger. So that's how it works. And we just, like Inside Tracker, just packaged that nice with it. They put it through a computer algorithm and it spits out a nice, easy number that you can look at to compare your inner age to your chronological age. And it's kind of a fun tool to, as you guys know, to compare with your friends. And
I'm gonna have to change things.
When should we retest all this stuff?
I think
we say if you do the ultimate test, we say every 4 months or every 4 to 6 months.
My computer was telling me we were supposed to do it in a couple of days from now, and that was the perfect time zone.
Yeah. I mean, it depends what's going on in your life, but we say 4 to 6 months, and that'll give an adequate amount of time to see your biomarkers move if you're using the recommendations that we're giving you, and just to see them, move at all. If you want your next snapshot, you should be able to see a difference in, what you saw before.
Oh, I'm excited.
So if people just listening that want to do this, they just go to InsideTracker.com, and there's different levels, obviously. So what's optimal for them, I guess?
Yeah, so you can talk to anyone at Inside Tracker about what your goals are, and then we'll help you decide what plan really works best for you. The ultimate plan, which is the one that you guys went through, analyzes these 42 biomarkers, and If you have the means to do it and it makes sense, then we recommend that one 100%, just because you want
top to bottom.
you get the
everything.
greater baseline look at what's really going on. We have plans that focus more on performance and recovery markers. We have another, which is high performance. We have another plan called Essentials, which just gives a greater look at kind of your overall health, but with less biomarkers. And then we do have that InnerAge plan. So if your main goal is, to live longer and you want to try to turn back the hands of time biologically, and retest every 3 months or so, then, maybe InnerAge is the one for you. But we're more than happy to steer you in the right direction, because everyone's different. Cool. So.
Outstanding.
Awesome. Yeah, we appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll look forward to the retest with you guys.
I was going to say we'll have to test again and then have you guys back and figure it out, see what we screwed up and what we got right. So.
Get Jimmy back on the air runner and hopefully he flies off the back this time.
Don't stop.
No, it was that last interval where we had to sprint our fastest sprint.
Yeah.
I had it up to, so I really leaned into the machine. And it got up so fast, and I was like, I'm going to fly right off.
Keep up with this,
Yep. Why don't you kind of go back down the trough?
I'm trying to convince him he needs to come back to a train with Rich.
Yeah, come on.
Because that workout, that was more of a pacing workout you guys did earlier.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't really... Yeah. I want to see him get after it.
Yeah.
I want to see him
go for it.
Yeah, I want to see him. Let's put him in something where he just has to go to work.
Train with Rich would do
We're
it.
about to pour a concrete pad out back too, so bring some roller.
Yeah, I used to do that work in high school, so.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, no, I'm not shy of going into the pain cave.
There we go. That's good. Good.
My 19.2 was one that I want to forget very quickly with the way I felt after that workout.
Yeah.
So
I liked it.
Yeah, yours turned out all right.
Yeah, yours went well.
All right. So
Right on.
Well, thanks for having us.
InsideTracker.com.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, guys. CrossFitMayhem.com. Thanks, RP Strength and Trifecta. Peace.